Hey everybody, what's up? Happy Sunday. I hope you are having a beautiful weekend. And I am back for Iyanla Fix My Life, you guys. Iyanla was definitely good last night, and I'm so glad that they finally gave us a two-parter. So this episode of Iyanla Fix My Life, okay, was about three women who had all been in prison. Three women that had spent years of their lives in jail because of drugs, because they were either selling drugs or their kids were selling drugs or their old man was selling drugs. Either way, they were in relationships with people who sold drugs, and as a consequence of that, they spent a lot of years in jail. So I'm gonna start with Brandy. Brandy is a 36-year-old woman who had been in jail for 10 years. She got pregnant when her man was on the run. She says her dad was a drug dealer growing up, and he really, put them in great schools and tried to give them a better life than he had. But of course, because she loved her father, y'all remember the coldest winter ever? It was along those lines. Well, I'm growing up seeing my father sell drugs. He takes care of us. He's always home. My mom is home. Everybody's comfortable. The example that was being set for her is that I can make a living, or I can be with someone who sells drugs for a living and it'll all be okay. But that's not true. That's the false pretense that she was raised under. And because of that, she therefore sought relationships with men who sold drugs. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I grew up in the 90s. And growing up in the 90s, it was very glamorized having a boyfriend who sold drugs. Like, I had family members who dated drug dealers, some of which died. A cousin of mine, the guy that she was supposed to marry, was running from the cops. He was a big drug dealer, and he was running from the cops, and he had coke on him, and he swallowed the bag of coke, and it busted his stomach, and he was in a coma and later on died. Y'all my fan. And that really was a hard time for my cousin. Like, before that, she had another boyfriend who sold drugs who was killed. My sisters had boyfriends who sold drugs and were killed or died. So it's just, growing up, I felt as if I love somebody, whether we have this elaborate lifestyle or not, I don't want to have to worry about you not coming home to me. I don't want to have to worry about you being in jail. I don't want to have to worry about those things. So whether they realized it or not, their lives were lessons to me growing up. And apparently these were lessons that these young women didn't learn. They didn't learn the real side of this shit. They didn't learn that you can die, you can go to jail. Like, I very much had it in my head at a young age that there were only a couple of ways of getting out of selling drugs. Yes, every once in a while you have your person that might get out and be okay at the end of it, but they lose a lot in the process. They lose family members, they lose friends, or they lose their lives. They die or they go to jail, or if you're a drug user, even if you do get off drugs when you're older, you have all of these ailments and issues that you otherwise would not have had if you didn't give your life to drugs in such a way. So I grew up very aware of what drugs and people who sell drugs and what that life is really about. And it wasn't something that I ever really wanted, to be a part of, but to watch these women be so oblivious. And I understand because of the time frame. Like, one is 36. So she, 6 years older than me, spent 10 years of her life in jail. The other young lady, whose name is Tai, is only 31 years old and has been in jail. Like, she's damn near the same age with me and has been in jail since she was like 25, 26 years old. Another one who, I guess just wasn't given the tools to learn. And she really wasn't. None of them were really given the tools to know what they should have done in their lives to have a better outcome. Because one has parents that are setting bad examples. The other one, Tai, 31, grew up in a drug house. So it's like this was something that was in their lives. And the older lady, Miss Matilda, who is 65, they were all in jail together and formed a bond while they were in jail. And Miss Matilda at 65 is, I can tell, one of the ignorant mamas, okay? No disrespect, no judgment, but I know the ignorant mamas, okay? That's what I call them, because they're okay with their children selling drugs just so that they could eat or be comfortable. And I feel like that's some ignorant shit, that you would put your child's life in danger, that you would, ruin their lives in such a way by not instilling in them that was the wrong decision. Go find another way, but don't sell drugs, especially back then. She been in jail for 18 years, y'all. So that means that she was like selling drugs. Some people were selling drugs at the height of crack epidemic, okay? Them other young ladies are you know, more closer to my age. So I feel like you might have grew up with crack, but by the time you became an adult, a teenager, you should have realized that, you know, somebody selling crack, that life wasn't really the business, because they was giving jail time to people selling drugs, real jail time, 30 years. Ain't never touched a vial of crack in your life, but because your old man sold drugs and you held money and guns at your house, you going to jail for 15 years, they ain't gonna see your kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saw this growing up. So, you know, I just feel like it's so sad when people don't see the examples, and it just made me feel blessed that I was able to be the type of person growing up that was able to soak up the things that I saw in a way that made me feel that I needed to make different decisions in my life. Because I'm looking at them like that could have been me. That could have been my sister. That could have been my cousin. Like, I'm looking at them like that could have been me. But thank God for different opportunities and having parents who knew better and all of that type of stuff, you know, because them old school ones, they wasn't here for this drug mess, all right? Back in the day, you came home from Vietnam, you did dope, and everybody was like, well, they saw some terrible stuff, leave your uncle alone. But see, when crack came along, nobody knew what that was really going to be like, and once it really hit hard, it was devastation. I was just watching Tracy Morgan on on Super Soul Sunday. And he was talking about like how crazy the drug epidemic was and how his whole generation was basically wiped out from either dying of AIDS or drugs or being in jail. Just, it affected the black community so much in such a negative way. And I remember how people who were older, they didn't understand the glamorization of it because they felt like it was the failing of our people. But because we seen people, you know, wearing all of their Adidas fit, we selling drugs, but we got the BMWs outside the projects. Like, we saw black people finally getting something that they never got. So it was almost made okay. And I feel like that's what happened with these people, especially Miss Matilda, because I have a real issue with the fact that as the mother of 12 kids, not 10, because she lied and told Iyanla that she only had 10 kids, and come to find out at the end of the episode, she actually had 12. But she also, throughout her life, felt abandoned. Her story is that when she was a young girl, her mother gave her to her grandmother to raise, like a lot of, you know, mothers did, and proceeded to raise her younger sister herself. So she always felt abandoned, and even though she and her mother had a good relationship, there was a lack of love that was shown to her. She felt a lack of love, and because she didn't know how to deal with that, like Iyanla always says, she wasn't given the tools. I think you create a hard exterior, and then you have children and still have this hard exterior. And her children still to this day was saying that she's cold-hearted, but they don't realize all the things she's had to go through. And that's why she created all of these layers. Miss Matilda was definitely with the layers, y'all. She had the goal. I was like, oh, I see you, Miss Matilda. I know what your life was probably like. Okay? And it's sad to see, because you know, like, the mom is the beginning of it all. For all of us, growing up, your mama is the beginning of this for you. And when your mom is okay with letting her children go out into the world and put their lives at risk in such a way just so y'all could have food on the table, especially when there are so many other women out here in the world who have made do without selling drugs, like Iyanla let her know, because Miss Matilda got in her feelings because Iyanla was trying to tell her about herself. In order for you to heal, in order for you to get past this and be free, you have to be honest. And being honest means realizing that you were imprisoned in your mind before you even went to jail, because the moves that you made showed everybody that you were still imprisoned in your mind. The fact that you couldn't think beyond allowing your sons to go out into the streets to sell drugs to bring money back to you and your other 10 children. You know what I'm saying? Like, you obviously have issues if you felt like bringing your boys up in that way was good for them, especially during that time period. People are dying. People are going to jail for 30 years. Her son got 30 years. And now his life is basically gone. The good years of his life are gone. What if he gets killed in prison? You know what I'm saying? Like, all the things that happen when mothers don't control the narrative of the lives of their kids and of themselves. And I understand it must have been hard, but who told you to lay up and have 12 children? Can we talk about that? Who told you to lay up and have 12 children if life was already hard for you, Miss Matilda? You see what I'm saying? There had to be a breakdown in between your heart and your mind and what you were being taught as a young woman for you to feel like your life at any point was like you were making right moves. You were never making right moves as far as I'm concerned, okay? But because of her experience, she was able to be a mother figure to Brandy and Tae. And Tae's story really broke my heart because Tae went in jail as she was pregnant with her son, okay? She already had 2 children, and at 25, I think 25, 26, she was pregnant with her 3rd child. The judge allowed her to stay out of jail while she was pregnant, and, you know, a month after she had her baby, only a month old, she separated from her child. Only a month after having that child, she was separated from it and then sent to jail and didn't come back out until her son was 4, about to make 5. So the beginning years of his life, he doesn't even remember his mother. And she's talking about how he had such a hard time, you know, with her because it was embedded in him that he was taken from his mother, that there, you know, was something that ripped them apart at such an influential time. Like 1 month old, y'all, like that broke my heart. And you know she's probably having a hard time. Beautiful girl. But you could tell that she, you know, gave up on herself a long time ago, and Iyanla got her to talk about that. And she said around 13 or 14 years old, she realized that her dream of being a doctor was too big, because here she is with a mother who she can manipulate because her mother's on drugs. And she said that she was in a good school and doing well, but she wanted to be at the school with her friends. I don't know about y'all, but the school with your friends is always the hood school, okay? My sister did the same thing, y'all, where my mama and them wanted to send her to a good Catholic school, because that's the only schools that's good out here in New Orleans for the most part, is a good Catholic school. And she didn't want to go there. She wanted to go to a public school where all her friends would be. Well, okay, you go to those schools and there's a lack of education. There's a lack of care in what they're showing the kids. They just want the kids to not get pregnant and not go to jail and don't bring no guns into school, like basic shit, you know, at these public schools. And I know because I remember the differentiation between the schools that I had been to. And like how school was in the 90s and all of that. Like it was real. Like the schools that we went to out here, like the public schools that were in the East, had like high HIV AIDS rate. Like what the fuck is that? You know what I'm saying? Like just the things that they don't even realize they're giving up by going to a school that they friends is at, okay? And when she did that, she manipulated her mom, and that was another thing. For her to say out of her mouth that she knew she could manipulate her mother. That was some real shit, because I feel like people often don't want to admit when they're doing something for false reasons or faulty reasons or manipulating somebody. Like Brandy Maxfield from the last episode of Fix My Life couldn't admit that she was being manipulative. This young girl just said it up out of her mouth, that I manipulated my mother into putting me into the school I wanted to go to instead of the school that I should have been going to. And it's because she gave up on herself. Looking at her background, growing up in a drug house, mama on drugs, not really able to give her any real semblance of a normal life, a comfortable life. She felt like it was something that she couldn't obtain. And so she began to become rebellious and got pregnant and got with the drug dealers. And then, you know, because of her relationship with her old man, she ends up spending time in jail. I mean, it's just terrible. And I mean, don't get me wrong. We have a responsibility, but at the end of the day, drugs were pushed into our communities. Like, let's not do that. We weren't given opportunities. We weren't given good schools. That's why they got bad schools for these kids to go to, because the money is not put into those schools because they're in the inner city or in urban areas. Don't think we don't see how the government has fucked us into a lot of the time not having any other options. And that's what they felt like. They were desperate. And I don't fault them at all for being with drug dealers or, you know, having their children sell drugs, whatever, because I understand the desperation. But you got to understand what got you here, what choices that you made that were bad to get you to this point. And that's the realization. There's no judgment, but real recognize real. And I think out of all of them, Miss Matilda is having the hardest time realizing that her version of real ain't really real. Iyanla kept saying that they told themselves fairy tales in their heads in order to make the things that they were doing okay. Let's take it back to Miss Brandy on this episode. Miss Brandy was only with her old man because he could give her a better lifestyle. She was accustomed to that. So for her, being with a drug dealer was more about the lifestyle, not about the man. And that's another thing I thought about. I'm like, you know, I've been in 2 relationships where I've watched the men that I love at the moment, you know, my husband one time and my first, my first boyfriend, my first like male love, watched him get arrested in front of me. And both times I felt so out of control, and it was a terrible feeling. It was a terrible, terrible feeling both times to watch them be handcuffed and taken away from me in that way. And I just, the night that I had to wait, overnight for them to get out of jail, because it was all like traffic bullshit. Because like I said, I don't want to be with anybody that I have to worry about that being a everyday occurrence in my life. But I tell y'all, just having that happen to me over a traffic violation, over suspended license, over bullshit that happened before Katrina, in both of those instances, it was traumatic for me. Because even though they're in there and they're going through something, so as the woman, as the person who loves them, you go through that too. And so that's why I'm looking at Brandy like, did you ever love dude? Because I don't know if I could say that I would love you the way I do if I didn't care about you being put in jail, about you being taken from me, about you dying. Like, my husband has a regular job, a regular, a 9-to-5 job. He is a manager. He goes to work every day with a button-up shirt and a tie on. And I still, every morning when he leaves this house, say, please come back to me. Come home. Okay? Because you just never know what's going to happen. So I couldn't imagine. I could not imagine not knowing. And Brandy had to come with the realization that you are no different than a whore. Not a whore like as in a prostitute that's fucking many men, but in a woman that is giving herself only for financial gain. You didn't really love that man. You was with him for what he could give you. So in the process, there might have been some affection. There might have been some love there, but you were more in love with what he could do for you than actually being in love with him as a person. And that's another thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when you're grown in your love, when you really love somebody, you don't want them to be put in any situation where control can be taken away from y'all. And what I mean is, when somebody is in the judicial system, when they have to go to court, when they have to show up, when they have to be in jail, when you got to pay for bond, all of that shit, that is taking control of somebody else's life away from them, away from the family. And that shit is traumatic. I don't care what anybody says. So the fact that so often these things happen to us without us doing anything really to get caught up, or because of how systematic racism has placed things in our environments and shit like that. Like, we talk about how there are no grocery stores, just liquor stores, like y'all instilled this shit in our community. And then when people take all that they have and do what they can, they're put in jail for all of their life. Like, it's a system that set us up to fail, fuck the Clintons for that shit. We have love for y'all because of the overall feeling of y'all being inclusive in y'all administration. But one of the worst things that y'all could have ever done was the war on drugs, and how y'all was willing to pin so much time on people for selling shit that's either legal now or white people been doing, and you don't see them getting put in jail for it. We seen who that was, whoever that girl was, Demi Lovato's drug dealer, okay, doing fucking interviews and shit. Black drug dealers gotta hide your kids, hide your wife, because somebody gonna knock down your fucking door. But these motherfuckers on television doing interviews about how, yeah, I sold her the drugs, but she knew she was doing too much. Like, what the fuck? The difference between what happens to black people and brown people and people of color when they have to sell drugs versus when the white dudes decide to do it. They can get on the news and do fucking, interviews about the drugs they sold to people. Like, that is some ridiculous shit, y'all. And it's the same thing with the system now about how a lot of states in the country is starting to legalize marijuana, but you still have so many young black and brown people in jail for selling weed. That shit is ridiculous. It's all a ploy so that they can get us in jail, so that they can continue to make money off of us. It's another form of slavery, y'all. And it's up to us to put ourselves in situations where we can least likely be arrested. All right, I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. It is up to us to try not to get arrested as hard as we can, because we see that it is easier for it to happen to us than it is to happen to our Caucasian counterparts, okay? And y'all, this shit just stuck so deep for me with the drug story, because I feel like all of us in life have normalized drug use. But to see it from the aspects of women who love men who sell drugs and then their lives get taken away, you realize the ripple effect it has on a community. And it's just so fucking sad, y'all. And y'all, here's another thing I want to point out about Iyanla. If you haven't read any of Iyanla's books, then you don't know the things that Iyanla has been through. Iyanla has been through worse, if not most of what a lot of the people who come on her shows have dealt with. She was raped at the age of 9 by a family member, abandoned. Her mother died at 31. You know, like, she's been through these things, been a young teenage mother, lived a life of poverty. She's dealt with these things. And so she was able to let Miss Matilda know that even though I'm giving you that real and it may not be something you're comfortable with, there's no judgment because you and I are the same. And she explained to her that you were 15 when you had your first child, I was 16. So, you know, like, just trying to let people know that I'm ministering to you as a counselor, but I also want you to realize that in my life, I have gone through some of the same trials and tribulations that you have. So I have place in what I'm saying to let you know what's true and what's real, because I've been there. Because you know how people are. If you haven't walked in their shoes, you know, you can't be some woman, you know, who's never been through anything telling people about how to get through shit. You know what I'm saying? But Iyanla has been through it all. And if you read her books, y'all, you would know that. Her books are fantastic. I mean, from her daughter dying of cancer, the mama dying of cancer, the relationships with the men, losing her money. Like, it's so many things that she's been through, so many trials and tribulations over the years, that she is a well of knowledge. And people really have to engage and understand that this is somebody who has been gifted with reflection on the things they've been through. And that's another thing, being able to reflect on your life and realize where you went wrong so you won't make those mistakes again. And I think Miss Matilda and Tai and Brandy really need to understand that you have to look at what you did wrong so you don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And that goes for anything in life, relationships, jobs, anything. You have to look at what you've done in your life to make decisions that may not have turned out the best for you. And to have faith that God will find a way. And that was another thing. You don't have faith when you say, you know what, I'm so desperate, I'm going to let my sons go out here and endanger their lives from the police or the dudes trying to take drugs from them. I'm going to endanger my children's life just so I don't have to work as hard, or so I don't have to try and find another way, or so that I don't have to have faith in God that he will make a way. You know what I'm saying? They talk about what Miss Matilda wants out of this situation, because she seems to be the one, you know, having the hardest time with Iyanla. And after Iyanla let her know that we done been through the same stuff, sis, listen to me, she was eventually able to become more open to the process. But mainly she has children who she has bad relationships with, because they feel that she's put up a wall and they don't realize how much she's been through as a person. And sometimes when you don't tell that to your children, because you're always trying to keep some, you know, keep things from them, and you think you're protecting them, but really you're not. You're leading them blindly is what you're doing. But she wants to get back to a good place with her children. And I don't know how she's going to do that when she only claiming 10 of the 12. But we'll get to that because there's a two-parter. So at some point, y'all know Iyanla got to shake this shit up. So she has a guy come in who's a police officer, and he starts to read off charges, but it's charges against life. Charges that they've committed against themselves and against children and against the community, not things that will actually get them in jail. But they was looking at Iyanla like, bitch, if you call the federally hood on us, it's going to be a problem. And I felt the same way. I was like, Iyanla, why are you putting these women through this type of, you know, post-traumatic stress? You know, but really she wanted them to realize that the anxiety that they experience from jail is still persisting. Like, they got scared. I got scared for them. But really, like, they had to sit down and talk about the fact that at 4 o'clock every day when they were in jail was the time that they would all get counted. So now at 4 p.m. every day, they all feel this anxiety that they should be getting counted. You know, that feeling of humiliation. They all have that same anxiety. And y'all, I've been going through that same thing since I've quit my job. The anxiety that I would feel before I had to go back to work. Days I just be in here chilling, enjoying my day with my husband, and that anxiety of, oh, I have to go to work tomorrow. Like, it would kick in. And now I have to tell myself, girl, you don't have to go nowhere. Calm down. Deep breath. Like, it becomes muscle memory to have anxiety over issues when you've been in situations that have been, you know, unhealthy for you in one way or another. Like, my job is definitely not the same thing as prison, but whenever somebody would get out, we'd be like, oh, Lord, they got out. Thank you, Lord. We really looked at people quitting quitting a job like getting out of jail. Like, that's how we looked at it. And it's so funny because it's not the same, but it is. You know, it's the mind that makes it the same. And they discuss how all of them as mothers are trying to make up for lost time, and Iyanla lets them know that they can't do that. That time is lost. The only thing that they can do is become stronger people and have faith in themselves and fight for themselves so they don't feel guilty anymore. They don't feel like they owe anybody anything. Like, to become strong in the fact that this is what I've done, but you know what, I'm moving past that, I'm moving on. That is where I was, that is not where I am. And you are not going to treat me like a felon. You are not going to treat me like I am jailed. And most importantly, I'm not going to treat myself like I deserve to be held on the cross for everything that I do. Self-sacrificing is what it seems like they are constantly doing as women because of the mistakes that they've made. And Iyanla wants them to get off the cross because, baby, we need the wood. I said, oh, all right, that's a word. Okay, because people do that, you know, and at some point you have to take responsibility for yourself and realize that you are in control of your narrative. You are in control of your spirit. You are in control of how your life goes. You are in control of how you feel when you get up every day and go to your job, when you get up and go out into the world. You are in control, and you have to make a conscious effort to be better, to be happy, to be bright, to be the light in the world. You have to say to yourself that this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to handle this. You have to speak these things into existence, and you have to be active with your happiness. You can't think happiness doesn't just happen. You have to do things to make yourself happy. You have to tell yourself, I'm going to be happy. Speak it. Feel it, you know, and be in it. Sit in your pain sometimes and understand where your pain is coming from and break that shit down. Even when you're going through things, you have issues, break it down. Okay, so I'm going through this. What happens if I do this? Or what happens if I do that? You have to put it down on paper even sometimes, because I feel like it helps us when we can clearly see what our issues are, then we can take some of the fear out of it. But y'all, Iyanla definitely gave us a word, and she left us on no judgment, just a lesson, and also left us on Matilda's daughter, Keisha, who came and talked about how she felt abandoned with her mother being in jail, how all her siblings abandoned her, and I think her younger sibling. And then we find out, you know, at that moment that the mom was lying about having 10 kids. She actually has 12. So we have to unwrap all of that. So it's going to be a two-parter, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And I'll see y'all in the next Iyanla Fix My Life. Y'all have a good Sunday, and I'll be back for more videos. Y'all know Married to Medicine and all, Insecure. Also, don't forget about my giveaway with SoapyLuv.com. Information down below in the description box. I'll be announcing the winners of the first giveaway today. I'll probably do it on Married to Medicine or something like that, or maybe I'll do a separate video, whatever. It'll be out today though. But I love you guys, and I'll see y'all.